All right, welcome everyone to the January 7, 2014 Shakopee City Council meeting. This is the first meeting of the year, and we have some oaths of office to administer this evening. We start off with those, correct?
Yes.
All right, and Ms. Linehan gets to do that.
Come out in front.
If Ms. Mokel, Mr. Luce, and Mayor Tapke would please come to the front. We'll read the oath of office, one at a time. I'll start with Ms. Mokel. Repeat with me. I, Kathy Mokel, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, and that I will faithfully, justly, and impartially discharge the duties as a member of the office of council member of the City of Shakopee, Minnesota, to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God. Congratulations. Raise your right hand. I, Michael Luce, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, and that I will faithfully, justly, and impartially discharge the duties as a member of the office of council member of the City of Shakopee, Minnesota, to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God. And lastly, Mayor Tapke, would you raise your right hand? I, Brad Tapke,
I, Brad Tapke,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
justly, and impartially discharge the duties
as a member of the office
of Mayor of the City of Shakopee,
as Mayor of the City of Shakopee,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God. Want a picture of everybody?
I think, Veronica, would you like a picture?
All right, thank you, everyone. I don't know, everybody's leaving. The festivities aren't over yet. My wife left and everything. We got a plaque to give away still. All right, item number 3, roll call. Ms. Weckman, could you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Whiting?
Here.
Councilmember Lehman?
Here.
Councilmember Mokel?
Here.
Councilmember Luce?
Here.
Mayor Tabke?
Here. Item number 4, presentation of appreciation plaque to former Councilmember Steve Clay. We have this evening a plaque for Steve. We gave Pamela hers when she was done at the end of last year. And before we do this, I just want to say thank you very much to Steve for everything you've done for the city of Shakopee in your multiple rounds on city council. And for me personally, you've been a mentor and a huge help on getting things done and helping me figure out what's going on in the city and where things are going. And I can't say enough good things, and thank you for all your work and all of your extremely hard work for the city of Shakopee, and how much we will miss you and your musical interludes when we get bored. So before we give them the plaque, does anybody else have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I was going to mention the musical interludes also, but appreciate all your wisdom. And I'm still wondering about that crown, if you had to turn the crown back to the city or keeping that? Okay. Well,
Thank you for your service, Mr. Clay. It's been an honor working with you over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clay.
Good job.
All right, so we have a plaque that says in recognition of 20 years of contributions to the city of Shakopee through service on committees, commissions, and city council. Thank you very much for your service. There we go. Thank you. We always want a speech.
At the microphone, please. As I'm no longer being paid to speak to you, this will be very brief. I would like to thank, first of all, the city staff that I've had the opportunity to work with these last 8 years. Very professional and wonderful group of people. We're very lucky as a city to have them. And then also my fellow council members and mayors that I've served under these last 8 years, and certainly not least the citizens of Shakopee who gave me the opportunity to serve them these last 8 years. So thank you very much.
Are you not going to stick around for the whole meeting? What's that all about? Thank you. Thank you, Pamela. All right. We now move on to item number 5, Pledge of Allegiance. Forgot about that. We will, item number 5, all stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item number 6, approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections? Mr. McNeil.
Mr. Mayor, we have 2 items. One would be an addition, and that would be regarding the designation of the city's official newspaper for 2014. The recommendation is the Shakopee Valley News. If you want to do that under consent, it would be 7F5. If you want to discuss it, it'd be 13F5. And
Let's just tackle that one first. Everybody good with that being on consent? Any concerns?
13F5, we'll ask questions.
What was that?
So if we don't put it on consent, it's 13F5?
Yeah. Do you want it on consent or you want it?
No.
Okay, 13F5 then. And the other one?
And then the second, there will not be a closed session, so item 15 would be deleted.
Okay. Thank you. Anything agenda from council? Entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Council Whiting.
make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Mokel. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. You guys got through your first vote. That's very exciting. All right, item number 7, consent business. Do we have anything to remove or add to consent this evening? Council Whiting.
I'd like to pull 7D1.
7D1, okay. Anything else? anything from council? All right, Matt?
7E3
7E3, okay,
and F4, 7F4.
okay. Anything else? Council Lehman?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as modified.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Luce. And Mr. McNeil, could you please read the consent business as amended?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 7A1 adopts ordinance number 881, which summarizes for publication purposes ordinance number 877 regarding modification to the city's requirements for zoning for breweries, brew pubs, wineries, and similar ventures. 7D1 was removed from consent agenda. 7D2 approves position descriptions for the city's full-time employees. 7D3 authorizes the promotion of Jennifer Besick to Police Record Specialist, a step B of grade 4 of the city's 2014 non-union pay plan effective January 13th, 2004. 7E1 and 7E2 accepts with regret the resignations of Carla Schutrop and Eric Burfind from the Environmental Advisory Committee and authorizes the process to fill the vacant positions. 7E3 was removed from consent agenda. 7F1 approves the payment of bills and electronic transfers in the amount of $2,357,036.62. 7F2 approves minutes of the December 10th and December 17th, 2013 City Council meetings. 7F3 approves the application and grants tobacco license to DG Retail LLC doing business as Dollar General located at 1202 Shakopee Town Square for 2014. And 7F4 was removed from consent agenda.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Any discussion on those items? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, now moving on to item number 8, recognition of involved citizens by city council. Anyone here to speak on an item that is not on the agenda this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 9A, public hearings. Approve application for taxi cab business license for Latour Transportation, doing business as Southwest Metro Transportation. Councilor Lehman,
Mayor, I'll make a motion to open a public hearing.
thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilor Whiting, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. We are in a public hearing. Ms. Linehan.
Before you this evening on agenda item 9A, the council is asked to hold a public hearing and take action on application from Latour Transportation, doing business as Southwest Metro Transportation for a taxi cab license, and this would be to operate 5 vehicles. Are there any questions that the council would have?
Councilor Lehman.
Ms. Lynette, when, before this business was transferred, how many were licensed under the past owner?
You know, I would have to go back and reference that, Councilmember Lehman.
3, maybe, I think, 4?
You know, without having a
Okay.
current count, I would really want to reference back.
All right.
This is, gentleman present, Mr. Latour? Would you like to
There were 5
come on up?
before.
Okay.
All right, now that you're walking up here, you get to say your name and address and all that fun
Name
stuff.
and address.
My name is Jeremy Latour, 2556 Onyx Drive, Shakopee, Minnesota. President Latour Transportation, LLC.
Or 5, and you,
5 before. Everything, nothing changed except the owner.
okay. Thank you.
Basically, yeah.
Thank you. Do you want to sign it? Yes.
Any other questions? All right, this is a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak on the item, now is the time. All right, seeing no one, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Councilor Lehman, do
Motion to close public hearing.
we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Mokel. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously for closing the public hearing. Entertain a motion to approve the application.
I'll make the
Anyone?
motion
Would you read
to approve.
the, let's see,
Bring him in early.
Tax cab
right here.
business license.
there you go, that bottom line there.
Motion to approve the application for taxi business license for Latour Transportation, DBA Southwest Metro Transportation.
Thank you, sir. Did we still have a second, Kathy?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? Councilor Whiting.
This is an existing taxi cab service, and I know we've had some other taxi cab services come back and ask for applications for licenses in town. And at the time the last one came up, I mentioned that I think we should consider limitations on future taxi cab licenses. I still feel that way. I think this is obviously one that's been around and we need to keep them around, but I still think that that's something that will help all of these cab services be able to still make some money in town here, so.
Councilor Lehman?
That would be true if your population never changed.
Yeah.
As your population grows, you're probably gonna need more services.
Very good. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Now we go into item number 10, business removed from consent agenda. We will start with item number 7D1, 2014 wages for paid on-call firefighters and officers. Councilor Lehman, Councilor Whiting.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. The only reason I want to make it clear why I pulled this is I think anytime we take someone's wage and increase it over 20%, I think it's something that we need to put out in front of the public and talk about. Is the chief here? Is he hiding back? Oh, there he is. Okay, sorry. Chief, I want to make that clear. I know I had a couple emails with you that I just want, you had mentioned that you think these guys should make a lot more money, and I agree. I think they should all be making $1 million, but we're not going to go that far. But my concern here is actually for the paid on call. We haven't raised that rate, and I think those guys, that should be some more discussion on. Obviously, that's going to change some budgets and things, but the paid on call firefighters could use a little bump too, I think. So what is, Chris, what is your feeling on that? Have you guys discussed that?
Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilmember Whiting, we have discussed the wage paid, the hourly wage paid to our paid on-call firefighters. They currently earn $10 at hire, excuse me, and that increases to $10.50 per hour after the completion of the education portion, which is 1 year. We discussed it with the employees in the fire department, and they were, they had a preference for increasing their pension amount, which the council did with the adoption of the budget. I don't think that makes the issue of hourly pay go away, and I think it certainly is likely to come forward next year during the budget process, or at least relatively soon during an annual budget process. But it was not brought forward at this time because the members of the department expressed a preference for, it was more important to them to see their pension amount go up. And so that's what was brought forward rather than a hourly wage increase for the entire paid on-call department. So you referenced that the increases proposed are slightly over 20%, and they are. They're right about 22%. But it's easy to get pretty high percentage numbers when you're dealing with small dollar amounts.
Right.
In terms of, the buying power. We're looking at raising the assistant chief from 5,100 to 6,200, deputy chiefs from 4,590 to 5,600. So the percentage numbers seem large. The actual dollars are less so. And then secondly, if you look at it, we estimate that these officer positions require an additional 5 to 12 hours a week on average from the individuals filling those positions, and it varies. What a lieutenant puts in extra is less than what a deputy chief puts in extra. They also each assume 5 weekends per year where they provide command coverage on the scene over the weekend hours. So they are averaging 500 to 850 hours for the year. If you divide these salaries by those hour amounts, we're paying them somewhere between $5 and $8.50 an hour for that work. So not large dollar amounts for the services that they are providing.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, that 500 hours to 850 hours for those 5 weekends, that's only if there's a call, correct?
They're committing to being on call and available throughout the duration of that weekend.
Councilor Lehman.
Which means their private life is pretty much shot that weekend. They
As far
can't
as
make-
making plans,
Right.
no, you wouldn't want to do that. You might get lucky and have a quiet weekend on your weekend, but
Mayor, the
Yes.
question I have, on the second sheet of the resolution, the in the attendance area, the percentages for the incentive pay based on a percentage, do we still have the minimum requirement?
We do.
Okay,
We have a minimum requirement that they make 35% of their calls for the year in order to earn their pension credit for that year. We were getting to a problem where 35% was becoming the norm, and we wanted to incentivize people doing more than the minimum, and that led to this system about
Okay.
2 years ago.
thank you.
Councilor Luce.
It was answered.
Okay. Councilor Whiting.
I'd like to offer Resolution 7394, a resolution accepting the 2014 pay plan for part-time employees of the Shakopee Fire Department, and move its adoption.
Do we have a second? Second by Councilor Lehman.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 7E3, authorization to purchase Metrodome seats for Schlepper Stadium. Councilor Lehman.
There, I took it off consent, had a couple of questions, and I know Councilor Lewis asked some questions, and one of us was gonna take it off, and apparently he didn't want to, so I did.
You're so kind.
The question that I had, actually a couple of them, was that the seats that we're looking at buying are 30 years old roughly, and the ones they're replacing are how old? 30 years old, 40 years old?
They've been out of the, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, they've been out of Met Stadium for 30 years, but then their age before that, so they may be, your historians from Minnesota, I'm guessing closer to 50 to 60.
Okay, and then do we know what the, they're in a heated environment at the Metrodome and stuff. I guess the question I have is, we're gonna put them outdoors in the cold and in the hot and in the cold and in the hot, and I have no idea how this is gonna affect this plastic chairs.
Mr. Lehman, thank you. I can address that. Mr. Hollander from the Public Works Department has asked a lot of questions of the company that's selling the seats, and they have assured him that they are made of outdoor grade materials. So they're the same type of seats that you would put in an outdoor stadium. They just happen to be in a dome, which is beneficial to us that they haven't been broken down by UV over the last 30 years. But they are of materials that should be good for outdoors.
So we can get the average life of whatever they are in the UV with the sun and stuff.
Correct, because as Mr. McNeil said, the current Mets the Met seats that we have they have been outdoors in our stadium for 32 years, and then however long they were in the Met, which was also outdoors. So those have lasted with the UV for, 50 to 60 years, however long. So hopefully we can get more than 30 years even out of these seats.
Okay, one more question there.
Yes, sir.
Do we have anything how we mount them? Is the systems, is there any cost to that, or is it pretty standard on these seats?
Yep, the mounting all comes with the seats that they're currently mounted with. Our current seats that we have at Schlepper Stadium the majority of them are 19 inches, and that's what these Metrodome seats are. When you do the whole bracket, they come up to like 24, so the seats itself 19. We feel we can fit a lot of them to the existing holes. Now we do have some mix-match seats down at Schlepper that we will have to drill some new holes. We're hoping we won't have to drill as many as we originally had thought, but they should mount about the same as what our current seats do on the back of the rise of each step, and hopefully we can use a lot of the holes out there.
And what do we do with the old seats?
That I'll be bringing forward to you. One thing we will have to do is surplus them as city property, and then I'll put together a plan for how we would make them available probably to the community and to probably sell them. And my proposal at that time will come forward, but the thought is we could use the proceeds to go back into the park asset fund as one option, because that's where we're taking these seats out of for further replacement, or other ideas may come about. But we do look at surplusing them and then making them available.
Put a chair or two in the historical
Yep.
museum?
Yeah, and we do want to keep some in the Schlepper Stadium. We'll find a spot for maybe a row or so for the nostalgia. It had been a good suggestion of the town teams to put a plaque at Schlepper that talks about the Met seats as well as now the Metrodome seats and where that history of baseball and how it got to Shakopee and what we're putting there. So.
The story got out a little today that we were looking at doing this, and I had a lot of people contact me today asking how they can get the old Met seats, because evidently there aren't many of them around, and a lot of folks want them for nostalgia. And so I think it would be a great thing to make them available, and I would say go into the scholarship fund, but we can talk about that one as it comes up. Councilor Luce?
Who will be doing the removal and installation?
At this point, our Public Works Superintendent, Mr. Hollander, is putting together a plan as to how many seats we would, what it's gonna take for labor costs. We'll look at our work plan, and the parks guys and the Public Works guys will be doing some of it. We may be putting out a request to our town teams, and we have a big group of the associations that all use the stadium. They helped install our current seats. We may ask them for some assistance as well of installing and removing these seats. We just
We run
haven't.
into any liabilities with them installing? I can see taking them out by volunteers, but not installing them.
We do have a volunteer waiver form that they can sign if they would be using any tools such as a drill or anything like that. Any of the concrete drilling, we would do either with our staff or we would contract out. I don't think we would have volunteers do that. But they could help with the bolts and the setting of the seats.
Councilor Lehman?
Mayor, if I could, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll shed a little light here on, we have a certified person in our Parks Department for park asset and equipment, playgrounds and these types of things. I would imagine that because somebody's working underneath that individual and that individual does the actual inspecting afterward, then the general public is safe because it's been done correctly by this guy's certification.
Well, we have a parks crew member that is certified to do the playground safety inspections,
Yep.
yes. So yeah, we do have the expertise that I think we could have that oversight. Mhm.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, entertain a motion. Councilor Whiting?
Move to authorize the purchase of 650 Metrodome seats to be placed in Schlepper Stadium utilizing up to $30,000 of the park asset fund.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Seconded by Councilor Mokel. Any discussion? I just want to say thank you to Pinky and Jamie and all the folks. You guys jumped on this issue really quickly and did a lot of work fast to get this done. So thank you to all the staff for getting this put together so that we can do this and save about over 100 grand on what we would have to for seats going in brand new. So that's a really good thing for the community. So any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, moving on to 7F4, updating 2014 city purchasing procedures. Do you want me to put this one to Councilor Luce, or do you want to take it?
Okay.
Somebody.
The, one of the questions I had was the bids are required for projects and purchases greater than 100,000. I think that's an increase. I think it was 50,000 in the past. And it was
Members of the council and mayor. This has been a change. One of the reasons we're bringing this for you this evening is there have been a number of changes through either the Office of the State Auditor or audit practices that have not been updated. This is an example of that value that has increased several years ago. The amount that was required for bids increased from 50,000 to 100,000. So what we are trying to do is get our records and our policies here to finally mirror what is handled as an audit team or the OSA comes in. This is a situation which is requiring this kind of an update.
Let's see if I can find all the changes here. The purchases over 5,000 but under 25,000. That's just a department head signature, is that correct?
Correct.
And in the past, that was 8,000. It was 5, and I think it moved to 8 or 10, and now it's going to 25.
Right. What there was one policy that allowed for a 10,000. There was another policy that allowed up to 15. What we're saying is, based on the discussions we had with the departments, the $25,000 factor was a figure they felt they could all work within that would provide them with the latitude to move their departmental needs forward and still give them the oversight needed.
Does the 5 to 25,000 purchase have to be a budgeted item? Because it really doesn't say on your sheet.
When we bring things forward, if it's not budgeted, it will come back to the council.
Okay, because it doesn't say on your sheet if it's budgeted like
That's an overall procedure. You bring up a very good point. I need to define that more clearly in that process. If it's unbudgeted, it goes back to council.
but it is specified in 25 to 100,000. So it's not consistent. And then the purchase over 25 but under 100,000 is council approval, but and that's not bid. And then over 100,000 bids are required. And obviously, city council is gonna have to approve the bid documents and going out for the bid
Correct,
over 100,000.
correct.
So I guess the two issues I have is the purchase over 5,000, under 25. It doesn't say in your paragraph that it's a budgeted item that's been approved by council. And then the purchase over 25,000 but under 100,000. I would still like to see items over 50,000 possibly be bid.
Typically, that is a standard that is set by the Office of the State Auditor, and that's why we brought it to 100,000.
Last year's standard was 50,000?
No, it has been 100,000 for a couple of years.
So we had the standard ourselves.
Mr. Thompson?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the 100,000 is a statutory standard. It's in state law. That
Right.
everything over 100,000 has to be bid.
Yep.
You could, council is certainly free to be more restrictive and do it lower if you want, but it is a state law standard.
Yeah, I'm at the 25 to 100,000.
Right.
That's
And
where I'm at. I'm looking at that paragraph where no bid is required.
that's correct, and that's
Correct.
consistent with state law. State law does not require bids, but it does require 2 quotes.
Yep, I understand that, but
Okay.
in the past, we typically used 50,000 as a threshold. And I
Not for
think-
several years.
I don't think that's true.
Okay. Well, it's-
Mr. Loney?
Mayor's, members of the council, I think that standard has changed several years ago.
Oh, definitely. We
And
haven't brought,
We really can't do a lot of work like in the storm drainage area or a lot of our little projects, they easily go over 50,000. And the effort to take to go to prepare bid documents, to advertise for bid, timelines, it does put a little more restrictions and hamper some of our ability, especially with the short construction season that we have sometimes in order to get the work done. So we have been doing that, if you remember, like the retaining wall works on the Upper Valley drainage ditch, most of those were under 100,000. So those were quoted, they're still bid out, but we don't go to the actual formal bid process. If that helps you understand where
Could you
we're at.
explain just real quick what the difference is between the formal bid process and just getting a quote for things?
Well, the formal bid process, we actually advertise for bid, and we take sealed bids, so people can bid on it. Quote process is, we have a number of contractors that work in the area that we select, or are in our quote system, or in our purchasing system, that we send out quotes for proposals.
Thank you.
So, that's the difference.
Council Luce?
What generally is the number of quotes you get?
Depends on the time of year, you know, who's bid. A lot of times we're lucky if we can get one quote, if they're really busy, and it's a specialty, but we usually get 3 to 4 to 5, somewhere in that range.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Council Lehman?
when you do it in-house on a storm sewer project, that's usually in our CIP, and we've already approved the CIP for that dollar amount. So there again, it's received council approval in general. What I'm trying to get at is that the purchase from 5,000 to 25,000, and it doesn't specifically say that it's any kind of approval is needed. So what I'm thinking is 25 grand, you go out and buy a couple of cars.
that would not meet
I-
compliance.
I know, but I'm just showing it's not consistent. So if we're under the understanding here that that item is gonna be consistent with the 2 paragraphs below it, that somewhere there's some approval process, whether it's a CIP or in the budget or by bid or RFP.
So is your request that we restate this per budget approval?
Well, I don't know if we have to restate it and bring it back, if we can agree that that's what it is.
We can easily, we can update that. That's
Yep,
very, very easy to do.
So what you're asking is the 5,000 to 25,000 be for budgeted items?
Well, it's either a budgeted item, or which will include.
You just want it
CIP,
stated in here,
somewhere,
correct?
yeah.
We can do that.
Is that
Very easy to do.
okay? Council Luce?
I had a question. I just don't want to see some sweetheart deals being done, somebody becoming friends with one contractor and see it all go one way. I'd like to see some documentation come through council, not that we have to okay it, just that we get a second look at it, just to verify.
Council Whiting?
Well, that would be in the city bill list, wouldn't it?
Correct. That would be who we make the payment to. So every time you see a payment made, that's going to be in your agenda under the city bill listing, vendor by vendor.
Okay.
Okay?
Mayor,
Council Lehman?
I think what Counselor Luce is saying is when you get multiple quotes, if we look at the bill list, we're not gonna see the quotes, we're
Right.
just gonna see the bill being paid.
Correct.
Well, he's asking to see the quotes. And if we get a quote for, I don't know, 50,000 on one and 75,000 on another one, and we go with the more expensive one, obviously I would ask, why did we go with the more expensive one? And staff would probably tell me, well, it wasn't the same kind of pipe or whatever, you know.
Mhm.
And it's a legitimate concern and question
Sure.
without knowing the information.
I don't have any desire whatsoever to see quotes
Anything over
on
25,000.
things that are less than $25,000. I mean, I completely get your point, Counselor Luce, that it is necessary to have those and to do them. And anytime you want to ask, you can
Go to council.
ask, and everybody on staff, I believe, will show them to you. And if there are issues, then we can work it out. But I think that having it come through council will be more information, at least for myself personally, than I'm able to digest at one point. Did you have something to say, Mr. Medial?
I just, talking with the Public Works Director, anything over $25,000 will come to you in a memo form, and if you want to, is there any issue as far as just adding what the other quotes are?
No, we always do that. We always show you how many quotes we received and what the amounts are.
Ms. Wilson?
Mr. Mayor, if I might, the areas that I commonly run into this is in my work with our facilities maintenance division and our building repair things. And we honestly struggle to get companies to give us quotes because they don't want their quotes out in the public realm of what they bid or quote for a project. And, you know, maybe they don't get we ask for quotes and we don't hire them 2 or 3 times in a row because they weren't the lowest, and then they refuse to spend their time quoting for us. You know, in the past, you'll see most of my memos will say, 3 quotes were obtained. The lowest quote was from ABC Company for, $10,000, or, well, that wouldn't be, it'd be $30,000. Just to try to maintain some semblance of a relationship with those other companies that we need to give us quotes in order for our process to move forward. It would be my thought that there's little value in putting them out there as the loser of the, of the quote process. It doesn't build our relationships with those companies that we work with. We do turn them in to the finance department. When I send the bill up that says I hired ABC Company for $30,000, I've got the bill, I've got the quote, I've got the council memo, and I've got the other quotes that I've gotten. So Julie's staff is looking over, in this case, my shoulder to say, did you follow the process? But it hasn't necessarily been our practice to always put them in the council packet, because that just, like I said, it provides another level of
If I could,
challenge in getting certain companies
Correct.
to quote us for HVAC projects and stuff like that.
if I could follow up, once those are submitted to finance, we review those for audit practice. When the auditors come in, they review these with great detail. They look for the types of quotes, who gets the quotes, is there a consistency that it's the same vendor? Realize every time we do an annual audit, there is also an audit of the audit, which is called peer review. There are many levels at this point that these issues are reviewed at. So I can assure you, there's not going to be a situation in which we hand over a purchase to one consistent company. We even go so far as to look and see, is this a new company? Was there a previous name on it? Were there previous owners? This is an issue we take very seriously because this is use of public funds. And we take a great effort to make sure that if we are selecting a group on quotes, bids, whatever, that we understand the importance of the use of public funds.
Councilor Luce?
I guess I'm comfortable with the situation that you're running right now, just as long as we have access, if we
Definitely.
ask, that we can see them. I agree that we don't need it out in the public realm, that's just not fair.
Yeah,
And it is difficult enough to get
it is,
quotes.
yeah.
The
So
good
I-
thing is you have access to anything that you want to see.
Anything. This is all public data at any time. Scan, email, route it out, just let us know.
Councilor Whiting?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchasing process effective 2014 with the amendment, the language on the
Correct.
budget, budgeted items.
Do we have a second?
I have a question.
We need a second first.
He seconded it, didn't he?
Oh, I didn't hear a second, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm still, who seconded it? Councilor Luce, okay. Seconded by Councilor Luce, there you go. Discussion, Councilor Lehman.
So we have companies that actually give us a quote without giving us a quote? How do we hold them to that?
No,
They give us a quote, but they don't want nobody to see it. Is that what you're saying?
No.
No, we see what it is. It's just, do we need to list in the council memo that
Okay.
this company bid
Okay.
more than the other company?
I
or
thought you were
quoted?
saying they don't wanna give the city a quote on a project, and I'm like, well, how do we know what the project costs then?
We sometimes have problems with vendors that say, no, I don't have time right now, or no, last 3 times I've given you a quote, you haven't hired my company, so I'm not going to spend my time. And then we're off looking for somebody else that can provide that competitive quote for us.
It's their loss of business then.
It is.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, now we move to item number 13E1, amendment to 2014 non-union
We have
ED, I just skipped
7F5.
right over. 11, entertain a motion to recess to EDA.
So moved.
Councilor Whiting, do we have a second?
Second,
Councilor Lehman, any discussion?
need Counselor, Luce say what the motion was, and Counselor Whiting here just says, so moved. So
Well, it's
moved
a
to recess.
different-
to
Recess.
EDA?
Yeah, okay.
It's okay. Thank you for that, whatever that was.
Picking.
Yeah.
It was really quiet.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. President Whiting.
Good evening. We'll call to order the January 7th, 2014 meeting of the Shakopee Economic Development Authority to order. Ms. Weckman, please make note of the roll.
Yes, Mr. President.
First item of business is the approval of the agenda. Mr. Lehman,
Motion to approve the agenda.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Mokel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Tonight, everything's on the consent agenda, so look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move item 3B from the consent agenda.
Item 3B, removed from the consent agenda. Any other removed from the consent? All right, Mr. Lehman,
Make a motion to approve the modified consent agenda.
there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Tabke. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item 3B, the bill list.
Mr. President, I took it off because it was on the table, the revised bill list. I noticed, and I was gonna bring it up, but apparently staff caught it too, that the bills totaled 1,033, and our first packet information was 5,400. So, nice catch, thank you. So I'd like to recognize that the bill list is the revised version on the table, and with that, I'll move the bills in the amount of $1,033.65 from the EDA fund as a motion.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Mokel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. There's nothing on general business, is that correct? All right. Last item is a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, January 21st, 2014. Mr. Tabke. Is that you raising your hand?
So moved.
All right. Second. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.
All right, thank you. We reconvene the Shakopee City Council meeting and move on to now 13E1, amendment to the 2014 non-union pay plan. Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. This agenda item before you tonight makes 3 changes to the 2014 non-union pay plan. The first change is to reclassify or move 8 city positions into a different pay grade than what they're currently in. The second change would make 3 positions exempt from the overtime provisions of federal law. In other words, they're shifting from being an hourly employee to a salaried employee. And the third change would adjust the dollar amounts in pay grade 10, which the lone position in pay grade 10 is that of police captain. If it's all right with you, I'm going to start in reverse order and go with kind of the simplest change first, and then we'll work into the ones that are slightly more complex. The change in the dollar amounts for pay grade 10 are intended to hold harmless our incumbent police captains. We have 2 police captains. They currently are paid off of the non-union pay plan, but they are eligible for the performance pay that is negotiated with our sergeants. That has been the case every year since the captain positions were created. And with our sergeants in the contract that you've already approved for the sergeants, we took money out of their pay for performance system and rolled it into their base wage. If we don't make this adjustment to the dollar values of pay grade 10, our captains will suffer a pay decrease as a result of what we negotiated with these sergeants. So this is intended to hold them harmless, and funds for those wages are in the 2014 adopted budget. The second change makes 3 positions exempt from the Fair Labor Standards Act, which is a federal law determining when someone is paid overtime versus when they are considered salaried. The 3 positions are the planner position, the communications coordinator position, and the police records supervisor position. In our review of all of our city positions, we found that these 3 positions meet the test established in federal law for being a salaried employee. They are all professional positions exercising administrative duties and significant levels of judgment, so they meet the test there. There is no change in the cost or the salary paid to these employees as a result of these changes. They do lose the ability to earn overtime pay. However, we compensate our salaried employees by having them earn vacation at a slightly faster rate than our hourly wage employees. So they will see an increase in their vacation benefits as a result of the change. And then the third change is to reclassify 8 positions. They are listed in your council memo in order from top pay to lowest pay. The first one would be to reclassify the chief of police, who is currently in pay grade 11, and make that pay grade 12. My position of assistant city administrator from pay grade 9 to 11. The IT coordinator and the economic development coordinator are going up from grade 8 to grade 9. The police record supervisor from 6 to 7. Crime prevention specialist from 4 to 5. Evidence technician from 3 to 4. And community service officer. You can see a trend there in that half of the positions recommended for moves are civilian positions within the police department. We have increased our use of these positions in recent years, and since the last time we looked at a pay plan study like this, and found that all of them are not classified in the proper place based on their duties and responsibilities. The decisions about where a position is classified on the pay grade looks at these 9 categories: the training and ability, the level of work, the physical demands, the independence of the actions exercised by the employees, the amount of supervision they exercise, the amount of experience required, human relation skills, that's contact, who in the outside world are you contacting with, who might you be representing the city in front of, working conditions and hazards, and the impacts of the end results. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about the recommended changes.
Questions? Councilor Whiting.
You want to talk a little bit about the pay equity compliance report that Springstead put together and how that came about? And
Sure.
what
The
that's
compliance report is not quite done. Springstead and I are working on that. It will be on your agenda 2 weeks from tonight for formal approval before we submit it to the state. But the pay equity is a Minnesota state law. It's been in place since the early or mid-1980s, I want to say 84 maybe. It requires all cities, counties, townships, all public employers, local government employers in the state of Minnesota to report to the state once every 3 years. And that report, we give them a list of all of our positions. We tell them how many men and how many women we have working in each of those positions. We tell them what the starting pay and the top pay is for those positions. And then we have to have a quantitative value or a comparable worth, points for those positions. They run it through a statistical analysis of some sort and come back with a ruling as to whether or not we are in compliance with the law or not in compliance with the law. The original purpose of the law was to ensure that female-dominated positions and male-dominated positions of comparable worth were paid comparable wages, or in other words, to reduce gender disparities in local government wages.
Mr. Mayor, if I, yep. So you said the report isn't done. Is there a chance that we could come back with another report and have to move some positions again?
I would say it's 95% done, and I feel confident making these moves now so that they can be included in the report, and the report can reflect the most accurate information. There are still final tweaks. The other place is, once this is done and submitted, there's 2 ways that we could be in front of you with changes. One is if we were found to be not in compliance, I don't anticipate that happening at this point, but if it does, we'll get a correction order from the state, and we'll have to come back and talk to you about what needs to be changed in order to bring us into compliance. Secondly, there is an appeals process for employees. So if an employee believes that their position is not properly classified on the pay plan, they can bring an appeal forward. The council itself does not hear those appeals, but you would need, there's an appeal board made up of the city administrator and some department heads. If they heard an appeal and decided to recommend a change, that would come to the city council as well.
So these recommendations aren't from Springstead yet?
Yeah, they are. They're from the results of the Springstead work.
They are. This
Which,
is
like I
not-
said, is about 95% done. 2 weeks from tonight, you will see the 100% done product. It'll likely be a consent agenda item, though. It's just the state requires that the governing body approve the report before I mail it to them.
Thank you. Other questions? Councilor Lehman?
So we're asked to approve something from a report we haven't seen. Okay, let me try something different here. So we approved 2 union contracts for 3 years, 3% a year for 3 years, which typically in the past, we would apply that to the non-union workers the same,
Yes.
right?
Which we did.
So that means all of these non-union positions are gonna see 9% pay increase over 3 years, consistent with what the unions received.
If we followed our past practice, I would see that as logical. It won't be fact until the city council acts on it, but yes.
Okay? What does this do above and beyond that 3% per year or 9% over 3 years?
It moves certain individual positions to a different pay grade. So in some cases, the 8 employees listed will see either an actual adjustment in their pay for 2014, or they will see themselves put in a new pay grade where they have the potential to earn more. They might have been at the top step, and now there's more room for them, for their salary to grow.
But don't they have the potential every year based on the 3%, 3%, 3%? And in the captain's case, the pay for performance?
The actual rate of pay isn't what is being discussed here. It's what tier and what grade they're going into. And so in order to be in compliance with the state, those positions need to be moved to a different grade. And so it's not the pay that is what is motivating this, nor the 3% increase for the 3 years. It's the grade that those employees are at, and in order to maintain compliance with the state, those positions need to be moved to a different grade. So the actual rate of pay isn't the main thing here, correct, Mr. McNeil?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and you've done a good job of explaining it. It's basically to adopt a plan to make sure that our pay internally is relative to the value, the points that each job is assigned, so that as you go through, those that have a higher work value are paid proportionally more than those at a lower work value. What you're talking about is a cost of living adjustment, which will come before you as the council each year. You may choose not to adhere to the union contracts, for which we have 2 of them. However, those are also ones that factor into the pay equity report, especially because our unions are all male-dominated classes, and if those get significantly out of line with what the other employees are receiving, then we'll probably find a non-compliance order from the state.
Does the state decide the point system?
The state has to approve our point system, but it leaves it up to each city as far as how they determine what their plan is going to be.
Do we know what the state qualifies the point system on?
Do you want to talk about what the merits are? And I think it's these items that you have on.
But this is
your
what we came
overhead.
up with. I want to know if the state has a system.
This is the system that we are essentially purchasing from Springstead. In our hiring of Springstead to be our advisors on this issue, they are providing us with what's called the SAFE, S-A-F-E, I can't remember what the acronym stands for exactly, the SAFE Job Classification System. That SAFE system uses these categories and it assigns points in each categories, and then you add them all up. So for example, the results of the points came back with the city administrator's position having 850 points and the chief of police having 770 points. And there's a points value as you go down the list for each and every position. There are 4 or 5 systems that the state recognizes as valid classification systems. This SAFE system that we are purchasing from Springstead is one of those that's recognized as a valid system. There's also the HAY, H-A-Y system. Some cities and counties choose to use the HAY system for their, the state uses that for classifying their own people, I believe. So there are a small number of systems, and within those, as Mr. McNeil stated, a city can choose how they, which one they want to use.
Mr. Leek?
Chris, it might be worth noting that a part of this process was a position questionnaire process. So each employee provided answers that relate to these factors, and in fact their supervisors or department heads reviewed them as well. And then those are reviewed in light of this matrix that's a part of the system, and I won't claim to understand the system, to decide what the point allocation is.
Right.
So there's quite a lot of work that goes into it. It's not just a list of positions that Springstead sat down with and said this one should have 890. It was based on that underlying information that you collected.
The questionnaires, yes. So there's input from the employee, there's input from the supervisor, there's input from myself from an HR perspective, and they all merge together to create this report to the state with the goal of the city being found in compliance.
Councilor Lehman?
I want to make a comment, and it's not directed at anybody specifically in the city of Shakopee employment. We have a government right now that's preaching about pay equality. At the same time, that government is forcing us to increase the pay of government employees who receive 100% free health care for themselves, cost of living increases every year, and very fine benefits, while the private sector is receiving very few, dropping out of the workforce and getting higher taxes put on them. This just, to me, makes no sense at all. And it's not directed at you or any staff member or any worker in the city of Shakopee, but it's insanity.
Well, I don't understand. We decide, I mean, this is the framework.
Yep.
And we decide as a council what numbers go in those frameworks as to where the pay increases and things like that come through, and we are staying equitable with other communities, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into all that, and they're not forcing us to increase pay, they're forcing us to comply with the standards. And so this case, it went.
Is increasing pay for positions.
That seems to be the most, if I might, Mr. Mayor, logical way. I mean, your alternative, I mean, based on these points, we need the chief of police to be paid higher than the other department heads. That's the way it comes back. So I suppose if you want, you could lower the pay for every other department heads in lieu of giving the chief, moving the chief up a grade. You know, so that, as the mayor says, they're not determining what dollar amount we pay. It's the relationship between the positions that needs to meet their statistical test. The end result, as you note though, the way we get there in the most logical way while maintaining our competitiveness in recruiting and attracting and retaining qualified people is to adjust these positions up rather than to adjust everyone else in the organization down.
Were there any positions that were found to go down a pay grade? And I'm not by any means saying that we should reduce people's pay because they're going down a pay grade, but if that position were to be rehired in the future that went from a grade 5 to a grade 4 or something like that, where we'd in the future hire them at a 4 instead of a 5 currently?
No, there weren't any positions that went down a full grade. Within the grade, you have a scope of things. So for example, in the pay plan that's in front of you, for pay grade 11, you've got recommended the community development director, the finance director, the park and rec director. We don't all have exactly the same number of points, but they're relative, you know. I think 2 of those positions came in at 605, and 1 came in at 640, and 1 came in at 650, and so they're grouped into a pay grade. So you can kind of move within that. but because we don't have a separate salary for every single position,
Right.
there ends up being some merging of things.
Okay. Counselor Luce?
It has to be a given, though, that there's gotta be a few employees that do not reach their goals that that is set every year. So we must have a few people that are not, they're basically going backwards a little bit, I would think, within their level.
No, that is not the case because our system is a years of service system and not a performance pay system. So employees move up through the steps based on years of service to the city until they reach the top step of that pay grade, and then they remain there until they either depart employment through retirement or going elsewhere, or they're promoted into a different position. So.
Counselor Luce?
I do agree with Matt that, we're being forced into this by big government to, continually raise wages. I don't think that's proper, but there's not a whole lot we can do about it. I think part of our question, I've spoken with Council Lehman, there's so many of them that we're changing tonight. Is this because it's a culmination of a 3-year project that maybe a few of these should have been done year 1, some of these should have been done year 2, it wouldn't look so bad in year 3?
Yes, this project is a significant undertaking, not only for myself, but as Mr. Leek noted, it involves involvement from virtually all of our full-time employees, so we don't do it every year. And the last time we looked at were positions in the proper pay grade was in 2006, and we implemented that with the 2007 pay plan. So if we did it every year, you likely wouldn't see 8 positions that need to be moved. You would see, a much more gradual approach. But because we pay a consultant a significant amount of money, and because it takes a lot of time, we do this less frequently than every year.
Counselor Whiting?
And Mr. Mayor, for the benefits of the new council members, this is Springstead's first shot at this. We had another company doing it in the past, so this is kind of a fresh look at it. Is that correct?
Correct. We used a different company, and they went out of business at the beginning of the recession, and so we had to start all over again. This is all about comparable worth, so you have to have everybody on the same system. And now that we've chosen to go with the SAFE system as provided by Springstead, we had to go through and repoint every single position, again, because it's about the comparable relationship between the positions.
Counselor Lehman?
Since this is retroactive back to December 30th, is there an issue with trying to understand this point system with information from the state and Springstead's to our next meeting to deal with this?
We are currently in the pay grade, or in the pay period that encompasses December 30th, so we haven't paid anybody for their work from December 30th. Those paychecks will be processed and go out next week. And the data that we put in the report is what we were paying people as of December 31st. So by making these effective December 30th, you ensure that these changes are reflected in our report to the state.
Counselor Mokel?
Chris, did we use the SAFE system in 2006, or what system was used?
We did not use the SAFE system in 2006. I know the name of our consultant. It was
Rod Kelsey.
Riley
Kelsey,
Detman and
Kelsey.
Riley Detman and Kelsey. I don't know the name of the
They had a
system.
proprietary system. It was one of those that was approved by the state, but they've gone out of business, so that system is no longer available.
Would the system make a difference in how the pay grades are separated?
The results? I think that if you ran the same set of job descriptions and duties and responsibilities through each of the systems that are approved by the state, you would find extreme similarities, but slight, they would probably overlap 90%, I would guess. But anytime you entirely switch systems, you're probably going to get 1 or 2 positions that pop out as, in this system they score here versus in another system they score somewhere else. They should line up, like I said, about 90%, I would predict.
Counselor Lehman?
I'll take notes. Who do I contact at the state to understand this mess?
I'll have to email you I can email you the name of the person at the Office of Management and Budget that we submit our report to.
And then who's contact for Springstead too? I want to try to understand this before I'm going to vote for it.
I can certainly send you their contact information.
Councilor Luce?
I'd like that same info just to make a phone call or two.
Very good. Councilor Whiting?
I'm gonna offer Resolution 7400, a resolution amending the 2014 non-union pay plan and move its adoption.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Councilor Mokel. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1 with Councilor Lehman in dissent. Is that correct?
I abstain.
You abstain?
Yep.
Okay.
I need to understand it more.
All right, with Councilor Luce in abstention. All right, item number 13F1, preview of new city website.
Good evening, council members, mayor. I'm here tonight to present to you guys a preview of the new City of Shakopee website. As you recall, last March, the city council approved a new website that would upgrade our current site, which has been in place since 2007. The city contracted with Vision Internet, which specializes in design and development of government websites. We also formed a staff committee and a citizens task force, which all collaborated to provide feedback on the process. What I'm showing you tonight is a work in progress, so bear that in mind. We are almost complete with it, and we hope to go live later this month. However, there are a few bugs remain. So, what I am showing you is also based on a lot of feedback that we've had from several city groups, including the city council. I know you guys had a chance to provide your feedback about a couple years ago, because this has been about an 18-month process. So. What I'm going to start with showing you is I'm showing you the current website right now, which tends to be a little text heavy. Our new site is much cleaner, and it goes for a more visually attractive website. You notice in the middle of the site that we have a large photo. This is a rotating photo that will showcase different aspects of Shakopee. Also on our homepage, we went with a much more action-based site, I guess. For what you're looking for, hopefully you can find it. These buttons down here are based on, the most popular things that people are looking at on our website, and also a couple new features. We also made latest news and upcoming events a little bit more prominent. On our current site, they get a little lost. So. Our interior pages are also a little bit more visually attractive. Our administration page.
Oh, good new picture.
I'll also show you the Parks and Recreation page. Another consideration that we put into when we were considering the new website was improving the navigation. You'll notice that the website is organized by the users of our site. We wanted to make it easy for people to find things based on who they were and what makes sense to them when they're coming to the website. These large mega menus make things pretty convenient. A lot of things appear very easily. And also, one of the cool things about the website is that people can find things from multiple ways. For example, if someone comes to our website looking for building permits, they can go to the traditional building inspections department. If they were a resident, they could find building permits under living here. Or they could go to I want to and find building permits under apply for a building permit. It all takes you to the same page and the same information. Also, with our new website, it does give us a better search capacity. That was one of the bigger complaints about our current site, is that it can sometimes be difficult to find things with the search. Our new site uses a Google search configuration, which is a little bit more robust. Unfortunately, I can't show you tonight because it's one of the tweaks that Vision is still working on and trying to get complete. One of the things I can show you though about search is I know we had some requests from both our Citizens Task Force and the Council to improve the search of the city code. We worked in-house to do that. Appears I was kicked off because of number of licenses. So I'm gonna have
We
to,
updated that.
I'm gonna drop out here.
we worked all day on this, so, it does work, I can assure you. So what it does, and I can explain it a little bit, is previously if you go to a search our city code right now and you type in the word dog, what happens is it searches the entire repository of all of our agendas, all of our minutes, and all of our city code. It takes a very long time. Our IT staff was able to isolate it, so now when you click on this feature and a search box comes up and it says search city code, you are specifically only searching the city code. So when I type in dog, it comes up in 10 seconds and I have 8 search results. So you'll have to trust me on this and I can show it you later, but it does work a lot better. So another consideration with our new site was we wanted to make it more mobile friendly. Over 25% of people who use our site come to it on a smartphone. This site has a cool feature that Vision uses to adapt the screen, what's on the screen, to the size of the screen of the device you're using. So this would be a full website. If you go down to a tablet size, it makes it so you don't have to scroll left to right. If we go down a little bit further to a smartphone size, it automatically adjusts the pages to fit a smartphone. So for example, it's gonna be kind of small because it's a smartphone, but this is what the Parks and Recreation page would look like. It's much easier to read. Right now we don't have this capability with our current site. Another focus on our site that was requested was a bigger focus on economic development. We feel like we've accomplished that by adding this business tab. This is aimed both at existing businesses and new businesses. We added some new pages for starting a business. Information that if you were looking at coming to Shakopee, what would you need to get your business off the ground, both with resources here at the city and then resources at the state level. And then also we improved the information for contractors and businesses that already work for us. For example, if you're a contractor and developer, we have a kind of a one-stop shop that our engineering, planning, and building inspections staff helped put together with information that they would need.
You hold on just a second, Councilor Lehman had a question.
The economic development portion,
Yes.
where it had the land available in Shakopee, and it steered you to another website.
Yes.
Yeah. Do we update that website then, or does somebody update to access deeds min prospector tool?
Currently, this is not updated by us. This is the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development's website.
Okay.
However, I've just spoke with our economic development coordinator. DEED is coming out with a new resource that cities will be able to tailor and use as a tool to specify simply for our city. So it's still going to be a couple months away, I think, but it's going to allow us to have our own tool that's similar, but it's just Shakopee based.
Does our current economic development gal send that information up there?
We'll find that out if we could concentrate on kind of the
Just the website?
website now.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
As kind of part of that, if we do get another addition to add to this website, how easy is this to add new functions and tailor?
It's very easy. The best way to describe that, I have been the one, my role as a communications coordinator is to update the website. And as we've been going through putting these, I think we have approximately 150 pages on the website, it has been a breeze. I'd like to say, you always find little things here and there, but the back end, the CMS, the content management system is how we as staff will edit the website. It's very easy to use, it's very friendly. Our staff committee was very involved in the process of choosing the vendor based on that, and they feel like that's something that we will be able to have more staff be involved in. So we'll also, with Vision Internet, continually get updates and upgrades of new products as they release them. And as part of our maintenance agreement, they will automatically be upgraded into our system so we can add new features.
Councilor Luce.
I see this as a very inexpensive way to highlight the historic downtown. We can't put signs on the freeway, but we can sure put some more pictures on this. And I think it would be very beneficial to downtown.
Mr. Leak had his hand up.
Members of the council, I just wanted to clarify for you that the Minnesota Prospector tool on Deed's website is updated with the most current commercial listing information that's available. And even when that new package is available, I expect that's how the information will be updated, but it will allow us to isolate the properties that are in Shakopee, where right now, if you go to that tool, you plug in the parameters. So if you want Shakopee only properties, you plug in that parameter. You wouldn't have to do it on this site when they come out with that additional package. But we have tried to update our map, which we generated in the planning department, but it requires going to several different listing sources, and Deed already does that more comprehensively.
All right, you can continue.
I'm going to show you a couple other features that had been mentioned by our groups that they wanted to see in the new website. One is an improved calendar. One of the nice features about this calendar is it's searchable. So users who come to the website will be able to isolate, if they're looking for just park and recreation events, or if they're just looking for city council meetings. And we have the capability of adding more categories and changing this as time goes on. Overall, the website has a lot more ways for residents to connect with the city. We have a staff directory in which all of our city staff are listed, at least their email address is listed, so that people can connect with the staff easily. Another feature that I'm going to show you is the service request, and I've logged in here to show you. This service request tool was one of the things that we really liked about Vision Internet. What it allows residents to do is to send problems that they see in the city, such as a pothole, or there's a street light out, or they've noticed some graffiti maybe somewhere at a park. What this will allow them to do is to choose a topic.
Gotta write this password down.
Well, that's an easy one.
So what it'll allow them to do is to choose the topic. We are in the process of choosing what our topics are going to be. Have some information come about it. Maybe we can answer their question right there. A subject, where they saw it, what time they saw it, describe the problem. They can even attach a photo. They'll send this. This will go directly to one of our staff members, who then can respond to the email, look at the issue, and have the contact information of the resident and get back to them. So it's just probably a more streamlined way, is a good way of saying it, of us connecting with our residents, and if they have issues, letting us know about them. Of course, if it's an emergency issue, we would ask them to contact Public Works emergency line or the police.
So with that, Kristen, for these types of things, because I can imagine that we're going to get a fairly good amount of things coming in through this once people get a hold of it and start to use it, which I think is a great thing. What is our workflow going to be to make sure that this stuff is handled? Like, how are residents going to understand the expectations of, if there's a grass and weeds code enforcement issue that comes up, how are they going to get the resolution, and how are they going to know what's happening with it?
This does send a reply email back to the resident stating a set time of days, that say it may take us up to 5 to 10 days to respond to this issue, so they at least know. And in that reply email, I believe we can customize it. So, if it's an issue that they probably don't need a response back on, that we would say that you're not going to get a response back on this issue, but we will be addressing it. So, also within the system, I will be able to review them and watch them, and it'll alert me if things are not being processed at an even time. So we're still in the process of figuring out the workflow of who it all goes to and who's all going to see them, but overall we think it'll be the staff on our staff committee was pretty on board with the idea of what we were talking about.
Perfect. So is the loop going to be closed once something is done with the resident? Are they going to know that it has been completed, or they're just going to assume that it gets done?
They can log back into the website, and all their issues will be tracked on the page, and it will tell them if their previous request, which you can see up here, if the issue was closed, if it was bypassed, it was overdue. So that'll give them a
Okay.
feedback system.
Thank you.
So. Lastly, the new website that I wanted to mention about the new website is we are also going to be going to a new URL. With the launch of the website in a couple weeks, our Citizens Task Force Committee recommended that we look for something a little bit more memorable and a little shorter. So we're going to shakopeemn.gov. We'll also be using that website, that domain name, for our emails. So all of our staff emails will be changing as well. The good news is that we can continue to use our current domain, which is ci.shakopee.mn.us, for an indefinite amount of time. So if people don't bookmark the new website, or if they're trying to send emails to using a past email address, it'll continue to work, and we don't have to worry about staff not getting emails. Like I said before, currently we're planning to go live on the week of January 20th. I'd be happy to answer any other questions, or if there's any other features you'd like to see with the site.
Councilor Lehman.
The number of licenses that it says was full and wouldn't let you in, are you online now? Or is it still full?
It's still full. IT has been working on this the last couple of days because this is something that they've been addressing. So we've been going back and forth, and it's a continued problem. I was able to get in earlier today, and I wasn't now. So when I see them tomorrow morning, I'll have to address that with them. Yeah.
Well, he's in. If he gets out, can you get in?
No, that's not that. This is Agenda Quick, and this is Laserfish.
Oh, I
Laserfish, and so this is where all of our long-term data is stored, is here, and we only have a certain number of public licenses for those, and so it costs a lot more money
That's
to
what
let
the public uses. If the public logs onto the website and searches for something,
in code. If it's
I can get into Laserfish here too.
right, if it's been in our agenda packets and information that's been in our council packets since we switched over to Agenda Quick, it's going to be searchable all there. But that's all the history and all of our code and that kind of stuff is in there.
if they want to get into the city code,
Mhm.
if a resident goes on their computer, goes to our website, wants to go in to look up city code, is their ability to do that restricted by the amount of licenses that we carry?
Yes.
Correct.
And didn't we just upgrade how many licenses that we carry to 33, I think it was, or something like that? Okay.
I get kicked out of that one all
Well,
the time.
I know that we did increase it, but do we have just such a large amount of use that we need to increase it more, or is it a different issue?
I'd have to check with IT staff with that.
And I'd be guessing, but I rarely get kicked out of the website, but I get kicked out of Laserfish if I'm in there, so it might be smaller licenses, or a smaller amount of licenses for that product.
Okay. And does the staff use of it for their job functions work as part of that license, or is that separate?
I'm gonna let Chris answer that one.
The vast majority of staff have a desktop access into Laserfish. So those staff that use it on any kind of regular basis have their own access and are not taking up one of the public licenses.
Okay.
We've been building our staff access and trying to get staff off the public. We're not quite there where 100% of city employees have direct access in, because it costs money for those licenses too. But we're working in that direction. Very few city staff have to use a public license. I'm kind of surprised that it would be busy at this time of day and locked out. I suspect we might be having a technical difficulty because, as Mayor Tabke noted, you no longer need to go into Laserfish to follow along with the council agenda. So I'm surprised that, whatever time it is, 8:25 in the evening, it's tied up. We'll look into it tomorrow morning when our IT staff gets in.
Okay.
Further questions, comments,
Looks good.
bits of wisdom? Sure, you put your hand up.
Looks like, that's no. Let me back off. No, it looks great. Looks like you guys put a lot of work into it, and can't imagine how many man hours or people. But I know you had a citizens team, and I want to thank them for what they've done and all the help you've put into it too. So thanks.
I like that it can shrink to the size of what you're using, whether it's your smartphone or your tablet or whatever. I think that's a great function.
Any other comments, questions? All right, I think it looks great. You've done a phenomenal job on getting an extraordinary amount of data into here, and I really appreciate all of everybody's hard work on getting that done. It is going to be an immense improvement for residents, and them being able to use and access government is a beautiful thing. So thank you very much for all that. Is there anything else you needed from us? Okay, so January 20th-ish?
The week of January 20th is what we're aiming for, so.
All right, so we'll say the 25th, right? Yeah. All right. All right, next item, item 13F2, Women's Correctional Facilities, Shakopee Perimeter Security Fence, Letter of Support. Mr. McNeil.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an item which is expected to come before the state legislature again this year, and this would be for, as noted in the agenda, a security fence on the perimeter of the women's prison here in Shakopee. It's been an unresolved issue for years. The prison staff is most concerned about keeping the facility safe and secure from exterior intrusions. However, we were reminded last month in December that occasionally there is a walkaway that takes place there that then affects the safety of the surrounding neighborhoods. Mayor Tabke asked that I place this on the agenda for you to consider tonight so that you as the full council can take a position should you choose to send it. We have drafted a letter of support. In it, it talks about an emphasis on providing the funding. The state will be asked for $5.4 million for it again this year. However, the specifics of the placement are not identified. That's because our position is that the state would need to apply for a modification to their conditional use permit. And should there be a question regarding that, you as the council would be the arbiter in terms of specific location or height or appearance or those sorts of things such as that. On your table tonight, there was a letter from Mr. Dennis Rahn. Mr. Rahn is a neighbor of the facility in that he points to the action which was taken most recently by the city council and is concerned that the letter as it's drafted for you tonight is not neutral, and therefore asks that you question that part of it. I guess our position is if the funding is not provided, the CUP process will be moot. So the question before you tonight is whether you want to take a position on funding of a security fence around the perimeter at the prison.
Questions? Councilor Lehman.
It's not our funding, so it shouldn't be our position. It should be the state's position. The issue that I have is if we're going to send a letter, it should be to the correctional facility and the state about their primary procedures to prevent what happened, because a fence is a secondary containment, not the primary. And the primary failed with what happened. So in my mind, putting the fence up and not addressing the primary issue, I'm concerned that the primary issue is going to get worse. So I would like to see what they're doing to address deficiencies in their primary systems, how they're going to address it, how they're going to monitor it, and what their long-term goal is to maintain their primary system before I'm going to support a secondary system.
In response to that, I talked to the warden about that exact same thing, and they have their position on that is that if there had been a fence, that this would not have occurred. That there are primary and secondary mechanisms in place, just like you said, for if and when the primary mechanism fails, which they believe that it always will fail at some point. There's nothing they can do to prevent every single incident and thing from happening, and that if there is that secondary, we'll give them time and ability to react and fix the problem with the primary of the guards that are there, who are unarmed, to fix, bless you, to recover from the failure in the primary, to have a secondary to give them that time before the person gets off of the campus. And so I don't disagree with you that there is a failure, but that does nothing in my mind to negate the need for a fence around it. Other questions, comments? Councilor Whiting.
Comments. We've been putting this off for so long, or it's not us doing it, but the state has been putting it off for so long, and I guess I'm worried about at what cost to our city here will we decide that, oh yes, this needs to get done. And I think we got lucky the last time. The funny thing is, we were driving by the prison on our way to the movies, and they had noticed that they had trimmed the hedge. And the wife joked, "Oh, someone's gonna escape now," and it certainly did. But that was just a week before. It's a little funny, but it's not funny at all when you're talking about. I happen to know the person who, where they had caught the inmate, was in his backyard, and it could have been a really scary situation for the city. So I think we need to support this, for the state to do something. They can come back when it gets done, and we can talk about details at that point.
And just so everybody knows where it's at in the process, it takes legislative action to get the money for building the fence. Senator Pratt put in a bill last year in the legislature to get things ready for this legislative session, to hopefully get the funding. The goal from our legislative folks, from Representative Beard supports the fence, as does Senator Pratt, and the governor's office as well, is to get it through the bonding committee. And I've been meeting with the bonding committees as they tour the facility, just to show what this means to the community, because it did not get done in the past because there wasn't support from this body, and that's the reason why it wasn't done in the past. And I think that support from this body, and know that support from this body is huge, critical for getting this done. Councilor Lehman.
Another concern I have is the process is they need to be applying for a change to their conditional use permit. That change goes to the Board of Adjustments. If it wants to be appealed to this body, they have the ability to do that. By this body telegraphing ahead of time that the majority supports it, any appeal of the independent body, we're telegraphing to go ahead and appeal if it doesn't go your way, and you're going to get your way. So that's not how the process is supposed to go.
I don't necessarily agree with that. And last time we were through this process, talked to Mr. Thompson about this quite a bit, and I very much support a fence. There's no doubt that I support a fence and think it's critical that we have one. But if the fence is a chain link fence with razor wire that gets passed, then there's no way that I support that fence. So we don't get to that point until we get the funding, like Mr. McNeil said, is that it doesn't matter what happens to the CUP until it is approved. And at that point, we are ready to approve or disapprove whatever we choose. And so there's a vast difference between what they are proposing and what could happen.
No, I'm saying if they come forward with a really ugly fence that doesn't go through the conditional use permit amendment process, then they appeal that, then it comes to us. We are, in effect, telegraphing our support, not knowing what we're getting. So,
Okay, Councilor Whiting?
I disagree. We are sending this letter for support in the idea of a safety measure, and you can call it a secondary safety measure if you like, but it's a safety measure of a fence. We're not telegraphing any move on the placement of that fence, on the design of that fence, until that process comes along. We're just looking at a prison and saying, that should probably have a fence around it.
Councilor Luce?
I think we should maybe word it like he just said, an additional safety measure, not a fence. leave it up to them to define it as a fence.
Okay. What if it's a moat?
I wouldn't support a moat or
That'd
alligators.
be cruel and you.
Tourism.
No alligators.
Tourism, exactly. Yeah, I see no problem in, Mr. Thompson, you can correct me if I'm wrong, legally, we have no problem with the direction we've gone with this in the past. Is that still maintained?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, yes, that's, I do have one question about the wording, though, that we might want. The first sentence says that the city is making the request. Is that accurate, or it should be supporting the request of somebody else? It's not the city actually requesting the funds, is it?
Correct.
Yeah, so with that, I think we should change that wording to indicate that we support the request, not that we're making the request. And we can
Okay.
we can wordsmith that, but it's just a technicality.
So with that amendment, so is there, Councilor Luce?
If we, as you say, word it in that way and just leave it open that we aren't specifying a fence, we're specifying that they need to add security. And we're in support of that.
Well, I don't want
Be
them,
more in what Councilman Lehman's going for.
I don't want them adding $5.4 million worth of, additional, employees to be there. I mean, I don't think that's effective. I think from what I've learned and from being there, I think that a fence is the most effective way to protect the community from the inmates that are there. If something should happen, that they get out, as well as protect the inmates who are in there for people getting in. Councilor Luce.
I have a question on that. Who wants to get in? Have there been any instances of someone trying to get in?
The chief is not here.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not the issue, it's not the issue of
Okay.
getting in,
Actually-
it's the issue of throwing contraband inside the property.
It's both.
That's correct. I'm on the neighborhood committee that meets quarterly with the warden and with prison staff to talk about issues that affect Shakopee, and that is one of the issues that they have. It is contraband drugs and things that are brought in. Occasionally, they will have someone who will wander onto the property, and they, of course, then have to go into a quick response mode. In some cases, those are innocent sorts of things. In other ones, there's probably not a reason for them to be there. A security fence, whatever it's going to be, would eliminate that sort. But as odd as it does seem, there are people that do want to enter the grounds for reasons that aren't positive.
I don't think we should be telling the state how much money it should be either.
Well, we're supporting the DOC request.
They're requesting that?
Yeah.
Correct.
Any further comments? Councilor Mokum.
Jim, so you're saying that there is no problem with using the word fence in this letter?
Well, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I understand Councilmember Luce's question, but I think the reality is the funding request is for a fence. We can't change that. That's what the funding request from DCF is going to be, and the purpose of this letter, if it's sent, is to say we support that request. The request is for a fence. It makes sense.
How do we stay neutral at that point?
Well, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm just dealing with, what do you say, security measures of fence, that's all I'm saying. And the question of whether you stay neutral, again, relates, I think, more to the question of what the fence looks like, the things you will have discretion over when it comes before you. And I will say, the city does not have the same level of authority that it has over CUPs when it's coming from a state agency. There's different rules that apply when a state governmental entity is applying for a land use regulation rather than a private entity. So we're gonna have some different issues to deal with.
CUP process is basically a courtesy process, as I understand it.
Payroll, right?
Well, not like our payroll, no, but, any further questions? Anyone motion? Mr. Leek, did you have something to say?
Yeah, just
Sorry.
a clarification about that. It is the case that in the years that we've done amendments for the correctional facility, it is not unlike the Met Waste Control Commission, essentially done as a courtesy, and we appreciate that they cooperate in that process. I just wanted to clarify, because there have been statements to the contrary, that the CUP process is, as I think Councilor Lehman correctly stated, before the Board of Adjustments. On the other hand, should they obtain the funding through the legislature, you might want to, as a city, go to the correctional facility and say, we would appreciate a modified process whereby before the CUP becomes effective, it is in front of the city council. But you have lots of discretion through that CUP process to address the aesthetics and the location of the fence, which I think is some of the concern. You are not committing to a certain number of linear feet or an appearance in supporting the funding request if that's what you choose to do.
Thank you. All right, we've talked about this a lot. Is there any motion to be had? Council Whiting?
Make a motion to authorize the attached letter with the amendment from our city attorney to be sent to the state.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Mokel.
What's the letter gonna say?
The letter,
It's attached.
you need to be lettered as amended.
The amendment that I have is the city council, of the city of Shakopee supports a request for funding.
Yes, the letter as amended.
Council Mokel agrees.
Will it have the dollar amount in there?
In 2012, this is addressed, Mr. Mayor, to the governor, and it says, in 2012, your bonding bill included $5.4 million for the construction of the fence. We've been told, or I've been told by the warden that they'll be requesting the same amount.
Doesn't mean that that's what the legislator passes. Maybe they pass something different and they come up with a different design that's cheaper.
Correct. Yeah, we are supporting their request. Whatever that ends up being is out of our control.
I think $5 million for a fence is outrageous.
I do too.
I don't support that, no.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Council Lehman abstain, or did you?
I still have too many questions. I would like to talk to residents and see what more of the impact's gonna be.
Okay, so it passes 3-1 with Councilor Lehman in dissent and Councilor Luce in abstention.
Can we take a short break?
We sure can.
5-minute recess?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Mokel. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are in recess for 5 minutes. All right, item number 13F3, 2014 City Council Meeting Policies and Procedures. Mr. McNeil.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Annually, the mayor at the first meeting of the new year proposes operating policies and procedures for city council meetings. You have in your packet a memo addressing those. The first part of the memo talks about policies and procedures which are not proposed to change. You can see those as items 1 through 10 on there. One of the things that Mayor Tabke has proposed to do, however, is to change the format of the meetings for 2014. In this, you would have, instead of 2 business meetings a month on the first and third Tuesdays, go to a single business meeting, which would be on the second of the 2 regularly scheduled meetings. Then on the first meeting of the month, go to a workshop format. There'd still be some things that we would need to do at each meeting, and those would likely be under consent agenda, but there are certain things that we need to do on a time-sensitive basis, pay bills. We would also be awarding bids in some cases, and if there's a public hearing which is mandated because of statutory requirements, we would probably need to do that as well at that first meeting. But generally speaking, I think the intent is that this would give you an opportunity to examine in depth items that you would not normally be able to do at a regular business meeting. The alternative to that would be to schedule a separate night, and that's just one of the things that is up to you as to whether you want to make that investment of your time. For example, we do need to look at goals and objectives for the next 2 years. We could schedule that at the first meeting in February if you chose to do that. There'd also be opportunities for you to schedule joint meetings with Shakopee Public Utilities or the school board or with the county board on one of those workshop nights. The other items would need to be deferred, and if they were not time sensitive, to the third Tuesday of the month. Looking at the format on this, there's probably no requirement that it would have to be televised, but that would be at your directive on that. However, either of the meetings would still be open to subject to open meetings laws and would be recorded. Mr. Tabke may have some other thoughts on it, but otherwise I am open for questions.
Thank you. I just have a couple things to add with that. Majority of what we've been doing the last 2 years, or last year at least, has stayed the same. What Mr. McNeil talked about with having 1 regular business meeting and 1 workshop type meeting a month came about because I've struggled significantly the last 2 years with keeping, because I meet with staff weekly on what's going on and where things are going and those kinds of things, is keeping everybody up to date on what's happening and having the opportunities as a council just to talk about things and have the ability to sit down as human beings and not up here to make sure that we're all up to date on things that are going on and all the different things that are going on in the city to try and keep everyone more on the same page and able to have more in-depth and candid conversations that we don't get to have in this format, in this venue. And I want to be able to have those conversations with everybody to keep, so everyone can sit down with staff and ask questions, as well as I would like to start to incorporate more community workshop meetings, and so have half the meeting as just council and staff as it's necessary and as makes sense, as pertinent to what's going on. We're still able to conduct the business of the city. It's just that staff would gear the business meeting items to that second meeting of the month, as well as we would, at the workshop type meeting, we would have council workshop, but then also workshop for another reason, whether that be goal setting, like we talked about for February maybe, or with Shakopee Public Utilities, school board, park and rec board, which we've had and scheduled separate meetings for those kinds of things. It is going to be tight, there's no doubt. The business meeting will need to flow and move along in order to get all the business done that we need to, but I think it's critical that we're able to sit down more as people and just have conversations about what's going on. So that's why I requested this change and want to get everybody's feedback as to what you think, if this is a good idea, horrible idea, what everybody would like to do. Councilor Luce.
Some of the feedback I've gotten from citizens is that the cameras stay on, and I'm in full agreement.
Okay.
We do not turn the cameras off. We are supposed to be transparent.
Okay. Councilor Whiting?
I think the workshop ideas are a great idea. I think gives us a lot more information from different avenues, different kind of format. I think might get us a little more relaxed, and I think kind of where you're going for. But I'd agree with Mr. Lewis. I think we need to keep that transparency. Seems to be the fear of a lot of people, that the government's doing something behind their back or something. And I understand where you want to go with that, to try and make it a little more less formal or a little freedom of speaking easily. But I think we still need to have that transparency.
Okay.
Transparency, no doubt. I actually think we could do a quarterly workshop just to shoot the breeze if that's needed. But otherwise, the workshops are really predicated on the issue at hand. A lot of the issues we can decide and discuss at a regular council meeting. And sometimes the issue, and we don't know it ahead of time, requires us to set a block time to really deal with it. And we don't know that ahead of time. So I think trying to make a workshop out of one meeting every month, it almost feels like we're trying to find things to do.
Well, we've got plenty of things to do. Don't even try that.
So I don't know if that's a good idea.
Most city councils
Opposite.
across the metro have workshops at least every meeting, before every meeting, or every other meeting, just to sit down and talk. And I've talked to a lot of other mayors about how they handle things, and that kind of thing. And I agree with you in a perfect world that it should absolutely be on camera. I like everything on camera, and everybody to be able to sit at home in their underwear and watch the broadcast of it. But on the other hand, I think the reason why I don't want it to be televised is so that we're able to have more candid conversations, especially with staff. I believe it makes it really difficult for staff to say things that they need to say or want to say, or push back against council members, or if ideas differ, or as well with personnel issues and things like that, for those kinds of things that aren't supposed to that can't happen in closed session, to actually have discussions about personnel issues and things like that we really don't want to have on camera. And I'm not by any means saying that work will get done or votes will be taken if we weren't on camera, because I firmly believe with all of you that any action we take, any major action, those kinds of things will be on camera. Those will happen at a business meeting. Those will happen at that point. This is simply workshop where we give council direction as to where we're going with things. It will be a fully public, open meeting. Anyone and their dog will be able to come. Do we allow dogs in here?
No dogs.
All right. If anyone and their seeing eye dog will be able to come and be at the meeting. But I think it's, in order to have more candid, productive conversations as a council, that I think that is part of it, because I think that we have a tendency to temper ourselves and not say always not necessarily the hard things to say, but we aren't able to have communication with staff that I think that we need to be able to have when everything is on camera. We don't have those times to sit down, as well as this room where the cameras are is horrible for workshops. It's really difficult to have those, especially if we're going to have any amount of people in here. Having in this room televised is extremely difficult. Councilor Luce.
Well, if you're going to have the workshops open to the public, why not put them on camera? You know, a lot of people can't get here.
Mhm.
They have restrictions, you know, they don't drive, they're older. That I still have to hold on, is that we have to televise it. And, you know, we're
Why?
not down here tearing each other's heads off. We're not dropping the F-bomb left and right. We're having a sincere, deep discussion on different things. It still needs to be open. We can still all temper our words a little bit and still get along, and we can say what needs to be said.
I don't have a problem saying what I want to say, whether I'm here in the Metrodome or talking to the president, which Bill Clinton, I did have a talk with him, and I told him what I thought of him.
Well, that's
I
awesome.
don't have a problem with that, but we're setting direction for the city, but with other boards and commissions outside of the eye of the people that have elected us. And you're saying that you want staff to be able to push back. Staff is supposed to be apolitical. The politics is here on this side of the dais. That side there from staff is apolitical. And you're asking them to be, and us, to be in a setting to where they can now become political. If they want to be political, I recommend they run for office.
No, that's
The camera
incorrect.
needs to be on, or I'm not gonna participate. And I think it's a foolish idea. I don't think we need to have a workshop every single month. It's a waste of time. And if there's a issue that this group as a body feels we need to talk more about in a workshop setting, we can set the schedule for a workshop for that purpose. That's my position.
Okay. Councilor Luce.
As far as staff saying it as it is, with all the meetings that I've had with managers, with Mr. McNeil, and with the reputation that I came in with, and we all know what that is, I believe Mark can attest that things have gone very smoothly. And they can say what they want to me, and it's not a matter of doing any kind of get back or anything. I'll take it as it comes. You know, we're all in here to do better for the city. We're not here for, I'm not here for a personal agenda.
And that my desire to have it off camera, it has nothing to do with that in the slightest. It has to do with, I think that we would have more productive meetings to get more done for the community by having a very conversation that is off camera, because we all know that conversations off camera are different than on camera conversations. And I very much believe that's true. It sucks, and it's not the way I don't think it should be, but they simply are. So, and if that is the major pushback, that we can't have it televised, then that's fine. Councilor Luce.
The other one is, I'm hoping Kathy's in agreement with me. We've got a learning curve. You've all gone through it. Give us a couple months to go through the way it's going through with the normal meetings. And then maybe we can talk about this again. I would be more in favor of a quarterly, twice a quarter. I'm open. I mean, I'll make any meeting that's necessary. I've put in for 4 years, and I'm gonna put the time in.
Very good. So, what I have proposed and asked for is for the 10 points, or whatever we're gonna call it, that we've had in the past, plus having a workshop meeting and a regular business meeting each week. Do we have a majority of council that, first, let's adapt. Mark, do we need to? Yes.
Let's say this format isn't working for us on a monthly basis.
We can change it whenever we
okay.
want.
We can go back and revisit.
I'm asking this to be, we can change it. If it's not working, it's not working. But I would like to give it at least 6 months to see how it would work. And if we want to revisit it on the first meeting of July, then, or the last meeting of June, we can absolutely do that. And it could fail massively. I mean, there's always that possibility. And I'm open to that being a possibility. I just think that we will, as a council, be able to stay more informed and understand more about what's going on that way. Councilor Whiting.
Let me just clarify, no votes will be taken, it'll just be business and
No votes will be taken.
informational?
Yep, no votes will be taken.
Are we gonna do any consent business?
We will, yes, the consent items they'll have to be there to get the bills paid and those kinds of things. If there's a public hearing that needs to happen, those kinds of things will happen. And if all that would need to happen every meeting as it is, we'll gear any public hearing or that kind of thing as we can toward the second meeting of the month. But when we're in the workshop setting, there will be no votes like we've taken tonight. It will be, here's what's happening. What do you think about this? What direction should we go? Once we get through our goal setting, we'll have definitive goals as to what we're working for. We can get updates on how those goals are going and those items, because I want council to be working at a much more of a policy level than a in the weeds. We pay all of our staff to do great jobs for us and allow them to do that work, and there's major policy issues as staff that we as a council that we need to address that we don't always address. And so that I want to give us the opportunity to ferret those things out and have discussions about them. Councilor Whiting?
No, I just, as long as we can take care of the business at hand, I would be willing to try it for a 6-month period.
Councilor Luce?
I believe, you know, if we're going to try this system and we're gonna do the consent business and all this and that, you know, tonight we had a couple of things taken out of consent. The logistics for bringing in the park board at, say, 8:30, we can't guarantee that. That's putting a lot of burden on those people, and I think that's unfair.
We would do it the opposite direction. We would do a, whatever board we would be meeting with or whoever would be at 7 o'clock, and we'd have that for 1 hour, and then we'd have our workshop that we need to get work done after that. Yes, sir.
As you know, with any workshop, you can't put a time frame on it.
We can.
Open workshop. I mean,
Right.
some of these things, you know, things get hashed, rehashed, and done over again.
Right, but the workshops, there's not gonna be any actions taken. Like most, if we meet with the park board, or if we meet with SPUC, or if we meet with the school board, it's purely informational and exchange of information, exchange of ideas, and exchange of how everybody's working together and what more efficiencies we can gain by working together in different ways and finding those types of things, not overriding policy decisions for the most part. Is that fair?
I just think it's tough to put a time limit on a workshop.
I agree with you. It could be a massive failure, and then we'll go back to 2 meetings a month and have workshops scheduled other times. I don't disagree. Councilor Lehman?
When you have a pressing issues that come up on the meeting that night that's gonna have the work session, public hearing, so on and so forth, are you gonna televise half of it and not the other half?
I get the feeling that we're going to televise the whole thing.
Okay. Well, televising the whole thing would be a good start. I still think it's you don't need a workshop every single month.
Okay. Noted. Councilor Whiting?
You know, a lot of times they'll set a workshop in other, like the school board, they'll set the next meeting as a workshop or come in early to do a workshop. If there's not a workshop needed or on the horizon, that could be part of the agenda packet too. So it can be canceled, you know, before it even starts, so. And a regular business meeting could be in place of that workshop if you leave it flexible.
Right, and the biggest part of this is a lot of the update kinds of things that we do. I want to make sure that everybody's getting those. Like we, when we have economic development projects that are going on, and incentive projects and things like that, there's a ton of work being done on all these, and there's a lot of things that are happening for those projects that are very much within staff and staff driven, not to the level of council policy or council decisions at that point, but this would be a mechanism and a way for us to keep everybody on council informed as to what's going on and where everything's at. Because Councilor Lehman, you've said many a time that where did this come from or how did this happen, and you didn't know what was going on. Well, this would be a way for us to get at that. So this is a big part of the reason why I want to do this and have these types of discussions where they're not we're not deciding whether a project is gonna happen or not. We're just making sure everybody knows what's going on with a project and those types of things. So what I'm hearing is that the 10 items that we've got, for the major points, as well as, having a workshop meeting and then a business meeting. Does somebody want to put that in the form of a motion? Counselor Whiting.
Make a motion to adopt the council meeting policies and procedures as outlined in the memo. And also,
Do them separately.
separately,
Separately?
Yep.
Okay. It doesn't need to be part of it?
we'll move that adoption.
Okay. All right, so that motion on the floor, do we have a second?
So is it televised or not?
Just a minute, if you look at the requested action in the staff memo, right now, the motion is only for the first one, which is to approve the policies.
Okay.
So and then there'll be another motion to adopt the business meeting workshop format.
So it's the first 10 items that we have been
Right.
working under every year, so.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Counselor Mokel. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1 with Counselor Luce in dissent. All right, and then the second portion of this is the adopted business meeting workshop monthly format to be effective February 1st. So this would be a workshop the first meeting of the month and a business meeting the second meeting of the month that would be televised. And this is more direction than adoption of a policy. So if we're okay with that, motion from someone. Counselor Whiting?
Move to adopt the business meeting / workshop meeting monthly format to be effective February 1st, 2014, televised, and move its adoption.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Counselor Mogul. Any discussion? Counselor Lehman?
Are you gonna point out which meeting it might be, first or second meeting of the month?
The first meeting of the month would be the workshop.
Okay. Is that what the motion maker intended?
Well, that's what it says here.
Yeah, but you made up your own as you went because it's different what it says there,
Format effective February 1st, 2014.
right? So it's the first meeting.
You okay with that, Kathy?
Yep.
Counselor Mogul? All right, any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Passes 3-2 with Counselors Luce and Lehman in dissent. All right, item number 4, authorize modifications to streamline routine personnel actions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In a desire to shorten the length of the city council agenda, Mayor Tapke asked staff to look at ways that we might be able to reduce the number of routine personnel items that come before you. One of the things that you hear me do at each meeting is to read through the consent agenda, and that often contains requests for action on what we'd consider to be routine things such as accepting resignations, authorizing advertisement to fill replacement positions, and then hiring employees. Minnesota law gives cities some wide berth in terms of what the councils will do on personnel versus staff. You can make changes by amending the city code. If you're interested in reducing the number of routine items, our suggestion would be that you authorize staff to accept resignations, to advertise for vacant positions if they are vacant and budgeted, and then approve hiring of at least what we'd say the non-department head level positions up to a certain hiring amount. We realize that in this case, department heads are the staff that you work most closely with, and therefore you want to have a great deal of comfort with that, and so we would not propose to make any changes in that particular process. However, if you would be comfortable, we would see on the pay grade that was before you tonight, those positions at a grade 10 or lower. If you would be comfortable in having staff make the hires on that, and what we would say is up to the midpoint of the hiring, or excuse me, of the pay range, which is typically what we offer in order to attract well-qualified candidates. If we have somebody that's lesser qualified, then they obviously would be further down the pay scale. Council would be authorized, or excuse me, would not give up any of its authority to terminate employees. That you would keep. There's another advantage other than just reducing the amount of the agenda items, but this would also allow us to act more quickly to make an offer to an employee if that particular employee is weighing multiple offers. That does happen. One exception to this would be those employees covered by civil service. That would be both the non-sworn and sworn officers at the police department. If you are supportive of this, it's my understanding the Police Civil Service Commission would be interested in looking at its rules and maybe making some changes. That's significant because about 45% of city employees are police and therefore covered under civil service law. If it's something that you'd like to consider, there is an ordinance that the city attorney has suggested that's in your packet tonight. I stand for questions.
Questions? Councilor Mokel.
Mr. McNeil, how much time do you think this will actually save council if we were to adapt this?
A lot of the timing for you would be the items which they're usually on consent agenda. If they were of controversy, they wouldn't be covered by this sort of thing. It's more staff time that would be saved, and again, provide us with the opportunity to react more quickly when we have a good prospect that otherwise may or may not be available if we have to wait the 2 weeks.
Other questions? Councilor Luce.
If it's gonna be in consent anyway, I think we should be able to get a quick look at it. If we're okay with it, it goes through in consent. If we have a problem with it, we pull it.
Councilor Whiting.
I think this is a great opportunity to kind of go down that road of policy governance. A lot of these things, they're all budgeted items. They're within our guidelines of who we're hiring. It's not any new hires. I don't think it's our job to need to micromanage some of these positions. I think it's, we pay staff to do a lot of that. It does save staff time and money time is money, to try and write these all up for us to pass through consent. So I would be in support of this.
Councilor Lehman.
City administrator under a Plan A form of government and a city manager under Plan B form of, we're a Plan A.
Correct.
So under a Plan B form of government, that empowers the city manager to deal with the personnel issue. Are you requesting us to be a Plan B city?
No.
So you just want the Plan B city rules?
Some of the Plan B authority under that, but it'd still be Plan A. So under a Plan B form, you as a city council just have one employee, and that's the city manager. And you delegate all authority for hiring and budgeting and everything to the manager. We're not proposing to do that. What we are looking at doing, however, is within the parameters that we've outlined here, authorize some of those routine items to be made by staff.
So you want parts of a Plan B city?
It would, if you want to look at it that way, yes.
Okay. I don't see the I don't see the need for any change, actually. I think what we have works very well.
Part of what pushed this was at our, it was the last meeting in November, maybe. There was a staff member that had resigned, and we rushed to put that resignation, accepting that resignation onto, it was one of the lower grade positions that we don't, I mean, we're never going to say no to a lower grade position that's, in my opinion, that's 100% staff purview, and putting that resignation, and then, so it was getting the resignation on there, getting that accepted by council. Then from there, it had to be advertised by council at the next meeting. And so we're pushing these things out, sometimes a month, sometimes 2 months, in order to just have council take those actions that are necessary, depending on what they are. And it takes a lot of time, and it slows a lot of things down for staff in order to get those on to council when they could simply make the decision and get it done. And so with your point there, Councilor Lehman, with Plan A to Plan B cities, Plan A cities absolutely give parameters to staff as to what they can and can't do, and that's all designated by council and what council deems to be done. So I think this is will make staff much more efficient and be able to fill positions much more quickly and get work done faster and save taxpayers dollars and get more work done for the community. So that's why I think it's important to do this on something that we don't need to work on. It's nothing that we're not day-to-day operations. We're policy and how that is all affected.
I like the parameters that we currently have.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilor Mokel.
Mr. McNeil, how many potential employees do we maybe lose in that time period that wouldn't accept their offer?
The biggest issue that we've had recently is police. We go through a rather lengthy process to hire under civil service. It comes to the Civil Service Commission. They have 3 candidates, and they recommend one that comes to you. Between the time that the Civil Service Commission acts and when you act, that can be 3 weeks. We anticipate that there are going to be several vacancies within the metropolitan area because of some changes in state law. So we'd like to have an ability for the Civil Service Commission to take a look at their rules and see if that's something that they would like to streamline. And then secondly, if you're comfortable with this, we think that we might be able to get candidates who otherwise might be going somewhere else and make a job offer to them.
Any further questions? Councilor Luce.
I would be willing to go along with this once they streamline their situation, because at this point, they're the ones causing us to lose more people. Civil service.
Okay. Mr. Mayor and Councilor Luce, if this is something that you would like to direct them to look at, and if you can express some level of confidence that it'd be implemented, I think they'd be willing to do that. What they were doing is waiting for you to act first, and then they would look at it. So.
Any further questions? Councilor Whiting.
I'll move to adopt ordinance number 880, 4th series, an ordinance of the City of Shakopee amending Shakopee City Code Section 2.06 Subdivision 5, dealing with the duties of the city administrator.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Mokel. Any discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Passes 3-2 with Councilors Luce and Lehman in dissent. All right, thank you. Item number 13F5, designation of official paper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the items that is your responsibility at the first meeting of the new year is to designate an official newspaper. For the past many years, it has been the Shakopee Valley News. I had a question from one of the council members in terms of what other alternatives we had. We did look at costs for Minneapolis Star-Tribune, comparing that to the Shakopee Valley News. As it turns out, however, if you look at state law, if there are 2 newspapers of general circulation, if one has an office of record in the community, that's who you go with. And the Shakopee Valley News has that. The Star-Tribune does not. Therefore, I don't know that there's a lot of flexibility that you have in this other than to designate the Shakopee Valley News as the city's official newspaper.
Okay. Questions? Councilor Luce.
Not really a question, just an observation. We're going to be going along with a newspaper that has approximately 11% share of Shakopee. When we're being mandated, the state's going to make us do it. But we also have a newspaper that's serving 33% by using the Minneapolis paper, which we can't do. I just find that not right.
I think it's stupid we have to put it in the paper anyway, but that's it's just,
But we'd have
When you could put
3
it on a
times the
website for
ability to
nothing.
reach people.
right, exactly. The whole thing is ridiculous, but unfortunately it's one of those things that we get to do.
Just
You will
wanted to point
find,
it out.
we will be able to have this conversation dozens times over each month as we move forward. Any other questions? Anyone offer a motion? You want to do your first one? No, that would be your second one, wouldn't it? I didn't scare you away, I hope. Anybody?
Oh, you want me to, oh, okay. I move to designate the Shakopee Valley News as the official newspaper for the city of Shakopee for the year 2014.
So second? Second by Councilor Whiting. Any discussion? Councilor Lehman.
You know, I think she missed the reduced rate in your motion, didn't you?
She forgot that part.
The rate was,
Reduced rate.
yeah, there you go.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. McNeil. 14, council member reports. With this, I just want to make a note. I don't have the council appointments completely done yet. I need to talk to Councilor Lehman yet. Then we'll have that solidified for the next meeting. So council member reports, I have none for this evening. Councilor Whiting?
Just a couple. Wednesday, December 18th, the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau Board met. They approved their budgets for the year and discussed a new board member and their recent strategic planning session. Friday, January 3rd, the Scale Executive Committee met and discussed the agenda for this Friday's general membership meeting. The meeting Friday will feature an update from Scale's First Stop Shop and further discussion on Scale's legislative priorities. Last night's meeting of the Shakopee School Board was postponed due to extreme cold. I should have said, due to extreme cold.
Polar vortex. All
I
right.
say it sounds cold.
Councilor Lehman.
Interesting, I got a email that the 169 Corridor Coalition was canceled from Lisa. Then tonight, just before council meeting, I got another one saying the location's been moved. So, I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to check into that and see if it's actually canceled or just moved, or if it was moved first and then canceled. I'll let you know on that. Derby Days is meeting Thursday for a planning session at the library. And they send out a questionnaire, ask everybody what they thought their strong points were, what their weak points were, and how to improve on the weaknesses, and what the goals might come out of that. So they're gathering this information now, and I suspect, I don't know until the meeting, that they're gonna have the results of that information and kind of discuss, where things may not have gone as well as they anticipated and how they can make it better in them areas, and where things went really well and how you can capitalize on that. So if you have any input from your observations, email them to me, I'll share them with the board.
Thank you. You guys have anything you'd like to add? Councilor Luce?
Request of Councilor Whiting. I understand that you were interested in the SPUC liaison. I am also interested in that. Mayor Tapke has told me that you have seniority. I would request that via the fact that age, time in city, and the work that I do more closely related to their business, that you would yield and allow me to take that seat.
We will take this
That's Mr.
outside the meeting, and that's
Mr. Tabke's,
I appreciate
purview.
your thoughts. Councilor Mokel, anything? Just stop talking.
I'll
Yes.
take Spuck. There you go. That's
All right.
great. I'll take that.
Item 16, any other business? All right, seeing none, entertain a motion to adjourn to January 21st, 2014 at 7 p.m. Councilor Lehman, do
Motion to adjourn to January 21st, 7 p.m.
we have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilor Luce. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. We are adjourned.